Hi everybody, this is Craig Teener for The Mindful Eye and the Daily Critique. Today's image was submitted by Steve, who's an intermediate photographer from New York. Steve says this photograph was taken on Cape Cod Bay. He says he loves trying to capture storms, especially those moments when the background is dark and the foreground is bright, reversing the visual cues that we typically think of that suggest depth and distance in a photograph. And he says in this case he was drawn to the scale of the people on the sandbar against the approaching storm clouds. This image was taken using a Nikon D50 50mm Sigma lens set at f11 with a shutter speed of 1/80th of a second. And I totally agree with Steve here. I love the sense of scale in this image. I love the quality of light. I love the way the bright light in the foreground is creating contrast, not only on the people but on the sandbar, and you have the highest area of contrast and the biggest color contrast right here. And all of that really lets me know where to look, even though the people are very, very small. This whole corner of the image has the greatest color contrast and just value contrast. And something else that I really like about this image is I just love the moment relative to the way the clouds are lined up and the way they sort of create visual movement and energy that relates to where the people are in the frame. You get a sense in the negative spaces and in the positive space shapes of shapes that push down towards the people. And then I just love this sort of little connecting idea right here that's sort of in between the people and the higher clouds. Another little slight diagonal that just kind of switches the energy from here over to here in a really beautiful way. It kind of takes all of this energy up here, it's sort of concentrated in a little cloud bank here, kind of repeats it again, and then you get down to the shape of the people, and you really just sort of have this beautiful feeling of movement of ideas that just expand on a diagonal throughout the image. Really love that. And just the sky itself, forgetting about just the movement and the things that I just talked about in the implied direction of movement. It's just a gorgeous sky in terms of the shapes of the clouds and the simplicity of it. The top part of this storm, it looks very ethereal, and it just has a quality to it that's an amazing counterpoint to the stark contrast and sort of reality of the people standing there. One of the things that this image definitely could make you think about, because it is so simple and so graphic, is black and white. And it's something that I do to every image that I look at. We don't always talk about it on the Daily Critique, but I did want to talk about that today because I don't like this in black and white, and I wanted to talk about why. Or I don't like it as much. It's still a neat image. We go to channels and just look at some simple monochrome versions. Go to the red channel. Initially it's sort of like a wow. And we go to the green channel, not as dramatic, but you could imagine making changes to this and making it dramatic. But what's really interesting to me is that in this image, the color really sells for me the emotional impact of the people sort of against the storm. The color in the color version is very simple, and the background is very cool and very blue, and that recedes and makes the feeling of the storm even sort of more ethereal. And then the one area where warm really comes in here on the sandbar, where you have this sort of yellowish tan, really accentuates the idea of the people standing in the light and the difference between the experience that they're having here in the light and what could feel like a sunny day at the beach, and then this sort of ominous thing that's coming behind them. And this is a good example where the emotions that we tend to associate with colors are really helping to sell the concept. And when we get rid of the sort of emotional baggage that comes with the colors in this one, we actually are losing something, because to me the colors are congruent with what Steve is trying to say. And also just very, very beautiful color to me, the way the color gradient happens with the blue and then sort of the teal and the blue green and then back to the blue. And I particularly love the way color plays off of what this person is wearing right here, just this figure, which really brings me to one of the main things I would think about for improvement here. I'd love to just see that one person standing there. If you're open to changing the editorial content of the image, I think I would clone everybody else out And there are a lot of reasons why I would do that. One just goes back to this idea of the person against the storm is a lot more of a dramatic story than a whole group of people against the storm, because there's safety in numbers. Just from a visual design standpoint, there's a grouping of people right here. They're all on tangent with each other, and that starts to make just the visual design of that part of the image very busy and very heavy. And there's not much that's interesting happening with color in any of these people over here. This person's shirt is a perfect harmony. It's almost like taking these colors and combining all of them, and that's very powerful. And it's just also a lot easier for the viewer as a storyteller to tell a story about the one person standing there. And so I would come in and clone those people out, and I did that in a rough way, and I knew I was going to lose the sandbar doing it the way that I did it, so I came back in and cloned the sandbar back in. So far that's where we started, and that's where we've ended up. And then I came in and I added even more saturation to the bottom right hand corner. I'm going to turn that layer on now, and it's subtle, but I'm trying to give the right hand corner even more weight and have even more fun with the green and blues and the tan yellow in there by increasing the saturation. And then this is very subtle, but I turned down the saturation in the top of the clouds to even ghost that out even more and push even more the contrast between sort of the ethereal and nebulous and the real sort of hard, bright color reality of the person standing in the sun, almost seeming oblivious to this thing that's happening in the background. I just wanted to show this real quick. This is just a blank layer, and let me make it active. A lot of you already know this, but in CS4, one of the things that made this work easy in terms of cloning is that if I hit the S key and make the clone stamp active, and when I'm cloning, I typically use a hardness of about 30% on the brush, and a lot of times I'm cloning at 100% opacity, and that's where I'm at right now. To use the clone stamp, I hold down the Option key and Option click and sample some pixels, and I want to get rid of this little smudge there and smudge there to make this line even more graphic and easy to do in CS4, because if I come in and just sample there, when I put the clone stamp over that area, it shows me the pixels that I've sampled, so it's very easy to get everything lined up just the way that I want it. And then I can click, and then that problem is gone in a very meaningful way. And by the same token, I can come in and do the same thing right over here, just line that up the way that I want it, click and get rid of that little smudge, and then on that layer just sort of cleaning up those two kind of blemishes in the line. And I didn't do it perfect. If we're working at 100%, I could come in and clean all that up. Just getting rid of those two little blemishes, it's amazing how little areas of contrast or things that break a pattern can really pull the eye, and if we're talking about traditional design, it can really take away from the look and feel of that. Here's where we started, here's where we ended up, and this is the kind of shot where when I see this sandbar's there every day, it makes me think of a whole show of images of different people standing there doing different things, just different archetypal things that they could be doing. The different qualities of light would be an amazing show to me. An image like this always makes you think, could this be the start of a series? Really beautiful, beautiful landscape shot. We want to say a big thank you to Steve for sharing this with us on the Mindful Eyes Daily Critique.